Welcome into another offseason edition of the Inside Carolina podcast. I'm Taylor Vippolis hosting this. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Like, subscribe, rate, review, do it all. The content does not stop around here just because there's no games. And joining me today from masslive.com, we've got Chris Mason on Twitter. He's at @byChrisMason. I wanted to talk to somebody today, Chris, about Drake Maye going third to the Patriots and what that's kind of looked like so far in the NFL. So first off, appreciate you coming on here today. I kind of feel like Game of Thrones with the Night Watch, where my watch with Drake Maye in Carolina has kind of ended, and I'm kind of passing it off to the guys in New England. So when it comes to Drake Maye, what were you kind of hearing pre-draft with the Patriots quarterback evaluations and their thought process with the pick, either staying at 3 or potentially moving back?
So I heard pre-draft that they were happy with any of the top 3 guys and that they were in a position to take whoever wound up at 3. I do think they liked Drake a lot. I think it was the NFL Combine, Gerard Mayo actually, it felt like he almost tipped his hand a little bit, where he got a question about Maye and Jaden Daniels. And the way he answered with Drake was very different with the way he answered with Jaden, where he was speaking glowingly about Drake. And then with Jaden, it was like, oh yeah, the obligatory, well, there's a lot of guys here, yada, yada, yada. So it seemed like he had been high on him for a while. And then when he fell to 3, I think, as you saw, the Patriots had a couple offers on the table, trade offers from other teams, and we're happy to sit pat, take him, and move forward.
You don't think there was any internal debates on the pick when they're on the clock, or is somebody running to get that card in?
I don't think there were when they were on the clock. I think they kind of had plans of attack. And I know in the front office, I think there were some people like Daniels more, some people like Maye more, but I think they were both high. They were high on both guys and willing to take, whoever was there at 3. It came down to personal preference before that, but I don't think there was much thought put into it. Elliot Wolf, who's, I guess now he still doesn't have the GM title, but he's been the GM essentially this whole time in New England, said that he told Robert Kraft, the owner, the morning of, that they were going to take Drake Maye at 3 because they had good intel that Daniels was going 2 and they liked Drake at 3.
You mentioned new head coach Gerard Mayo. How involved was he in the decision to get himself what he hopes to be his future franchise quarterback?
Very. That's been a buzzword. Collaborative has been a buzzword in New England for the last, I don't know, since Bill left, essentially. It's been, we want a collaborative effort between the head coach, the front office, and everything. So he's really involved. One thing I will say about Gerard, though, is he knows what he doesn't know. So I think he's leaving some of that quarterback evaluation to guys like Alex Van Pelt, the new offensive coordinator. Ben McAdoo is somebody they just brought into the front office, and then obviously all the scouts and everything like that. So he's definitely listening to them, but he's absolutely been very involved in this process.
Chris Mason, Patriots beat writer for masslive.com. You flew to North Carolina recently to do a profile on Drake Maye. I encourage everybody to check it out. How Drake Maye's family forged unflinching confidence in Patriots QB. What did you learn about Drake from that experience?
So I kind of set out going into that story with just trying to figure out what makes Drake Maye. How is he who he is? And the answer I found is growing up in the house that he did, where 3 older brothers and just so competitive about absolutely everything. I talked to his dad and he was pretty straightforward, where he was like, yeah, we've preached the importance of winning since they were young, and you can see it. They compete in everything. And then Drake, in addition to being the youngest brother, was always the smallest brother growing up, because he's got one brother, Bo, who's 14 months older, but he was huge growing up. And Drake was, the smallest one. So he's always been scrapping. He's always been the little brother. And I don't think he's ever lost that. That's really what I learned in talking to all of them, is just, he still has that mentality.
I encourage everybody to check it out. And I don't want you to reveal the best stuff, but what was one of your favorite stories, or something that you think best demonstrates who Drake Maye is as a competitor?
I really think that there's one. I opened the story with it as a 9-year-old. He was on so his brother Luke, who played at North Carolina, is still playing professionally in Japan, he was in high school and he was already a really good hoops player. So he was on an AAU team. They had a carpool. Their dad, Mark, was driving the carpool that day, and Drake tagged along. And so a little ways into this ride, he starts asking the high school kids, where have you gotten offers from? And they start chiming in with, some lower tier D1, mid-major type schools. And after each one, Drake's going, oh, what? Oh, what? And then the finally they finish with all the schools. There's no Carolina, there's no Kentucky that like any of Luke's teammates had mentioned. And so this 9-year-old turns around in the front seat and just deadpans, man, y'all got to pick your game up. Like, can you imagine being in high school and being told by a 9-year-old as you're getting D1 offers that they're not good enough D1 offers? But that's just who Drake has always been. And then, so eventually, obviously, Luke was the one in that group that was getting a ton of major attention. And so Roy Williams came to the house. And instead of being awed at Roy Williams being in his house, Drake went up to Luke and said, that's nothing. Coach Saban's going to be here soon recruiting me. Coach Saban is going to be here. And sure enough, a few years later, Nick Saban was at the Maye household, and he was sneaking into the Myers Park High School gym to watch Drake play basketball. So he's just kind of always been this way and always had this confidence about him. And he likes to talk smack. Like that has certainly come out too.
Yeah, I think when you hear Drake Maye talk in some of the post-game press conferences when he was at Carolina, he says everything that you want for your quarterbacks. He has that prototypical look of a quarterback. But then there are some moments where he starts to reveal like his character and his personality. And it's really somebody where it's just like the more you hear him, the more you want to keep talking to him and keep learning more about him. And I think from my perspective, I think one of the most interesting aspects about Drake Maye and how Drake Maye kind of grew up, no doubt the confidence he has in himself. But you look at everywhere he's been in his life. Growing up, he's Mark's son because of what Mark did at Carolina. Then Luke is a star on the basketball team winning national championships. He becomes Luke's brother. And before he even steps foot on campus as a member of the football team, it feels like he's living in their shadows and getting these expectations kind of put on him. From talking to people, how do you think he kind of handled those expectations that were being put on him just from who his family was?
He was definitely motivated by it. So I talked to Luke about this a little bit because, like, to peel back the curtain a little more, in high school, Drake would get chants from opposing student sections when he was playing basketball that was just, Luke is better. And it would get under his skin. Like his high school coach told me that. And it's because he doesn't want to be Luke Maye's brother. He wants to be Drake Maye. He doesn't want to be Mark Maye's son. He wants to be Drake Maye, where like he has great relationships with those guys. He loves them. They're his family, but he wants to be his own guy. And Luke basically told him at one point, the only way you're going to get essentially out from under this shadow is to prove it yourself. And it's always been a motivating thing. And it's really funny. I talked to his brother, Bo, who also got the same Luke is better chance in high school. And he shrugged it off completely different. He was like, yeah, I was like, of course he's better. He's playing at North Carolina. Like, what? Yeah, he's a D1 basketball player. He's better than me, like whatever. But that's not Drake. Drake is like, no, he's not. I'm better, and I'm going to show you why.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that's kind of interesting with being in people's shadows, not only is he Mark's son or Luke's brother, when he comes in in Chapel Hill and it's finally his time to be the starting quarterback, he's replacing Sam Howell, who at the time everybody was like, this is probably the best quarterback we've seen just from a talent standpoint. And North Carolina has gotten lucky recently, going from like Mitch Trubisky to Sam Howell. They've been putting quarterbacks in the NFL, but it took one half in the game against Florida A&M in 2022 for people to be like, yeah, this kid is the best quarterback talent we've ever seen in Chapel Hill. And obviously you cover the Patriots, and when you think quarterbacks in New England, everybody is going to compare who they have now to Tom Brady. It's probably an unfair comparison with Brady being widely considered the GOAT, but from what you've learned about Drake, do you think that to be the next successful quarterback in New England, it has to be somebody who has that mindset? Like, those comparisons are a challenge, and I'm going to do everything it takes to get out of that person's shadow?
I do think so, yeah. And like, first things first, that's such an unfair expectation put on quarterbacks by the fan base, but it's just going to happen. You know, it's like, oh, compare him to Tom Brady. It's like the dude with 7 Super Bowls, like the greatest quarterback of all time. This is the bar. But in addition to kind of having that fire, he's going to need to be able to deliver, where like Cam Newton is very much his own guy, right? Like, he's honestly, the year after Brady left, you're thinking, okay, it's great that they got Cam in here because he's his own person. He's not going to try and be Tom Brady. He's Cam Newton. but he couldn't play anymore. He was washed up. And because of that, it was 1 year. It was a bad year. The offense was terrible. And then with Mac Jones, it's been more the same where like Mac does not have Drake's fire. He's a fiery guy, but in a kind of a different way. But the results weren't there. He just went downhill after his rookie year. And couldn't deliver on the field. Eventually those comparisons go away and it's like, okay, who's the next guy? Who's it going to be? So I do think that fire will serve Drake well in trying to essentially chase Tom Brady, who's, I don't think he's ever going to be caught. Like maybe that's a hot take. I don't think anyone's going to catch at least his Super Bowl wins. Like I don't think they're going to catch him, but I think Drake could give him I think Drake would like to try and chase him, put it that way.
When Patriot fans are trying to be sold on the idea of Drake Maye before even watching him play, do you think their ears perk up a little when someone mentions that one of his mentors in Chapel Hill in Carolina was Clyde Christensen, who was Tom Brady's quarterback coach in Tampa when Tom won the Super Bowl with the Bucs, and the similarities that Christensen has kind of seen between the two?
I think so, yeah. It's interesting in New England because Christensen was like seen as a Colts guy for such a long time. Like he was Peyton's guy more than Tom's guy. Of course, eventually he did see Tom up close in Tampa Bay. And I talked to him for this story too. And he was great just on like, he told me that nobody likes winning a $2 bet more than Tom Brady. And that Drake is the same way. Like they challenge him to anything like, Clyde, I bet you can't hit that crossbar over there. And then they're like wagering $2 on it just because like both guys want to win a bet. So I think the fan base definitely likes that. But honestly, I think one thing that's gotten a lot of them bought in early on is that he gets some Josh Allen comps, because Josh Allen has been smoking the Patriots for the last 5 years. They've seen up close like what a quarterback with that skill set can do to a defense. So I think that's something that's definitely perking ears up too.
You talk to all these people, coaches, family, you get all these great stories to compress into your article. What was some of the best of what got cut?
There are just so many like random little things where like a standard breakfast at the May household was 36 eggs, like 3 dozen eggs and 2 pounds of bacon. There's no way to like shoehorn that into the story, but little things like that, I was like, that's insane. And then apparently Luke was the one that would always be like, oh, I'm actually still hungry. Can you make more? And it's like, I think Bo's the one that told me, he's like, man, now that I start cooking for myself, like I feel bad for my mom. Like I do feel bad that she had to like put up with those kinds of breakfast and do everything like that. So there's a couple things like that. His high school coach told me that an assistant GM asked him if he was an Eddie Haskell. He's like, because he's so yes sir, no sir. It's like, is he like a jerk behind the scenes? And he's like, no, he's the furthest thing from Eddie Haskell. But apparently that's something that at least one team wanted to know in the pre-draft process. So like I said, nothing like totally groundbreaking. It was 3,500 word feature, so I tried to get a lot in there. But there's a couple little tidbits on the side.
Quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, you could visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. And if not, no worries. You could go online to johnnytshirt.com. They have all the Carolina apparel that a Carolina fan could possibly want. The hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, you name it, they've got it. It's great people, great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. Chris, you've Patriot beat reporter, Mass Live. What have been the early impressions from Drake Maye from rookie minicamp?
So we only got to see him one day there, and he had 6 throws in one competitive period, and they were all short out routes. But hey, they were good looking out routes, They so we really haven't gotten to see a ton of him yet. And the one day at rookie minicamp, honestly, I think it's almost like Joe Milton was getting a little more attention because he has a huge arm and was just really wild with it, and that's going to catch your eye more than like, it looked like Drake was like kind of as advertised, the ball place was not perfect, but it's in the ballpark, where Milton's was really all over the place. So that was kind of eye catching. But yeah, like no real first impression yet, other than, those 6 out routes in the competitive period. I think he completed 5 of them. So that's kind of where we're at with him right now. We have
go ahead. Sorry.
They have OTAs start next Monday, so we'll have a better idea when he's out there with veterans too, and see how the rotation with Jacoby Brissett is going and all those sorts of things.
If quarterbacking was all about arm strength, Joe Milton, first ballot Hall of Famer.
Unbelievable. But yeah,
I,
it did not look like he had an idea of where some of those throws were going.
every time I think of Joe Milton, I just think of the clip of him at Tennessee throwing an orange like
Yep.
120 yards, just sending that thing to the moon. But I've listened to some of the coaches talk about their first round picks at quarterback, and Gerard Mayo was saying something along the lines of Drake Maye has a lot to work on, and you kind of compare that to Sean Payton with Bo Nix in Denver, and Sean Payton's been nothing but gushing, raving reviews saying like this kid is everything we kind of thought we were getting. What do you think Mayo's strategy is there, or just what did you make of Mayo's comments saying that Drake Maye has a lot to work on, which really is not too surprising for a rookie quarterback?
Right. One, I think that Peyton kind of is in a spot where he has to be doing that, to try and convince that fan base that this was the right pick that they made, because people were all over the place on Knicks, right? Whereas I think basically everyone in New England, like I would say 90% of the fan base, wanted them to take Drake Maye at number 3 and have the quarterback and go from there. So I don't think Gerard has to really like play that game right now. And I think he's just being honest, where he's like, yeah, he does have some stuff to work on. He's, he wants to motivate him. And Gerard played for Bill Belichick, and in the locker room, they used to call him like Belichick Jr., Bill Jr. when he was in there. He was like a second-year captain who Bill really, really liked coaching and everything. So I think that was his NFL experience, and he's going to carry a little of that with him, where Gerard's definitely his own person. But I think he saw some of the tough love that Brady got over the years from Bill, and I don't think he's going to hesitate to do some of the same things.
You mentioned the Patriots bringing in Jacoby Brissett. What would you say the plans are for Drake? Is this his job from day one, or is this a spot where you think they'll try to ease him in? Like, what would you say your prediction would be?
I think he's going to have to earn it, and that's really what they've set up. But I think the entire thing is really on Drake's timeline. If he looks great in training camp this summer, is markedly better than Jacoby, and is ready to go, then he's your week 1 starter. I've heard that if he's CJ Stroud, they're not going to bench CJ Stroud. He's going to play if he's ready. So I think that's the plan, and they've kind of afforded themselves the grace to really take their time with him if he's not. And that's why Jacoby Brissett's here right now. It's because he's a veteran mentor, a good locker room guy, and because he can kind of keep the seat warm if Drake's not ready to go right off the bat.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the Patriots how they've kind of totally retooled their quarterback room from last year to this year. I'm pretty sure Zappy's still technically on the roster, but he'll probably be a training camp battle.
Yeah, I think he's battling Joe Milton for the number 3 spot, and honestly, I think it's probably going to go to Joe Milton. Where I'd be surprised if Bailey Zappi's on the 53.
Yeah, so it's going to most likely be a completely different quarterback room from one season to the next. And when you are the Patriots and you finish 4-13, you're picking in the top 3, safe to assume you have multiple holes that you need to fill to improve the roster. And so much of drafting really comes down to the situation that you get put in and the guys that are around you. So for the fans listening, the Carolina fans now who are listening, who feel invested in Drake's success and Drake's future, how do you think Drake is positioned with the talent around him offensively?
The one thing that scares the heck out of me now is left tackle, where they have not like found anyone established to play that position. And it feels like I think they're going to see how it goes, but I'm not terribly confident that there's a great option on the roster right now or a great like 2024 option, I should say, where they drafted Caden Wallace, tackle from Penn State in the 3rd round. He played exclusively right tackle at Penn State. And they're having him rep at left right now. We'll see if he can make that switch. Elliot Wolf, the de facto GM, said that, the only reason he was playing right tackle there was because they had Fashanu, who went in the 1st round playing left tackle the whole time. But still, 4 or 5 years repping on the right side the whole time. I don't know that that's going to be a seamless transition. And he's a 3rd round tackle to begin with, where those guys, they're in the 3rd round for a reason. There's an issue that needs to be worked through, to some degree. So I'm not convinced that he's gonna make a seamless transition. That might take some more time. And then the other option they have is Chuks Okorafor, who is a veteran they signed from Pittsburgh, but he got benched in Pittsburgh last year, playing right tackle there too. So I don't love the left tackle spot, and that would give me a little pause, especially if you're trying to break a rookie quarterback into the league.
Before we wrap up, a big shout out to our friends at Congruity. Congruity is a North Carolina based national coverage, local presence company with personal support straight from the Tar Heel State. Congruity is empowering small and mid sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people. And they are doing it with top of the line technology and services for every stage of your business's growth with a state of the art online platform. Congruity, they are obsessed with customer service where they become part of your team. They do the heavy lifting, providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor made for you, transforming your organization. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day to day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, unlock game changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn all about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to their consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners or viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels, congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. All right, back to the episode. How would you say their receiver room is? Because I saw they used one of those early picks on Jalen Polk from Washington. What's their receiver situation kind of look like?
It would look a lot better if they had a true number one. Then everyone would kind of slot into the correct spot on the depth chart. Where I think the receiver room it's definitely better than it was a year ago. And some of that's even addition by subtraction, where they cut Devontae Parker, who just could not get open. I don't know if Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a job on this team. He's going to be in a training camp battle, and if he looks like he did last year, I think he could also be cut. So your receiver room, you have Polk, you have Javon Baker, who they also took in the 4th round. Pop Douglas had a nice rookie season. They signed KJ Osborne from Minnesota, and Kendrick Bourne's back, but he's coming off an ACL tear, so that could take a little more time. So I think a lot's going to depend on the 2 rookies and like how quickly they get up to speed, and honestly how much they can contribute right away. Where it's like a fine room, but it's still not great.
I saw Drake Maye recently sitting right on the glass at Panthers Bruins for the playoff hockey game. And I know we mentioned the Mac Jones fallout and how there's some scars there from Patriot fans, but how have you seen Boston fans embrace him and vice versa with Maye embracing what the city has and everything that the city has to offer?
Well, I think that was a great first step, and he hasn't been around much. He'd been in Carolina, but he came back up last week for the rookie camp. But I think just doing things like that are such an easy way to ingratiate yourself to the fan base. And like him and Polk were sitting in the stands too. It's not like they were up in a suite or anything like that. And I think the fan base really wants him to be good, and that helps. I think that makes a relationship like that a lot easier. So I think things are definitely off to a good start from that front. And yeah, like I said, if you go to the game, sit in the stands, fans are going to like you.
Check his article out. You can follow him on Twitter @by Chris Mason, Patriots beat writer for MassLive.com. His article, How Drake Maye's Family Forged Unflinching Confidence in the Patriots Quarterback. Chris, appreciate you joining today, and thank you to everybody that's watching and listen.
Thanks for having me on, man. This was awesome.